All right, so we're here for my deck tech. I'm playing Jeskai Tokens, a deck that largely survives the rotation. A lot of the mechanics, like Jeskai Sensei itself, a lot of token makers are still present. I think it's still strong, even though it loses some temples, it loses Stoke to Flames. But a lot of the cards are there, and it gets a couple of upgrades, mainly in Gideon, Ally Zendikar. So let's get right to it.
All right. Where are we starting at?
I don't know. I guess we'll start with a... Okay, so it's based around Jeskai Ascendancy. An enchantment that's hard to deal with. Maybe there won't be so many Dromoka's commands post-rotation, but anyway, the goal of the deck is to make a lot of large, I guess wide is a better term, armies with things like Hordeling Outburst, things like Hangerback Walker dying, and Gideon, Ally Zendikar just making 2/2 knights for you. And just have various Anthem effects, various untap effects, and just kind of go through your deck and present a very pumped up army that starts small but gets very large very fast.
Yeah, I've played a ton of Jeskai Tokens ever since, I believe it was like a real deck just immediately after Khans of Tarkir came out. And, when we had Stoke the Flames, it was incredibly powerful, and I'm curious to see if the deck can really survive without that card, because being able to freely pump your team while also looting and also dealing your opponent 4 was a big game. But I think Gideon is also a huge addition to the deck, so it could just change the dynamic of how the deck actually plays out.
Yeah, the deck really wanted a 4-drop Planeswalker before. It played Chandra, but Chandra wasn't quite as good. It didn't really flow with the theme. It was just a good card. Then you had options like Elspeth and like Sarkhan even. But the deck doesn't really want to get up to 5 and 6 mana all that much. You want to like loot away all your excess lands with Jeskai Ascendancy after you cruise and just keep on chaining spells after spell. Mm-hmm. Looks like we're going to have to lean a little bit on things like Wild Slash and what's the other one? Something else that costs 1.
Collateral damage.
Yes, Cloud Damage, Wild Slash, and yeah, Treasure Cruise itself as 1 mana things to keep on going ever since we can't like have Stoke to Flames for a 0 mana spell to keep on going. But the creature base, we have 9 total 2-drops. We're not playing Dragon Fodder because I think Dragon Fodder gets a little weaker after Stoke the Flames is gone. Mm. And it's not as important since we have actual good 2-drops too now with Jace, Fringe Prodigy, and Hangerback Walker.
Yeah, I think both these cards really bring something new to the table. Older versions have played Soulfire Grandmaster. They've played...
Seeker of the Way.
Yeah, Seeker of the Way, and... I never really liked either of those cards too much, and I think Hangerback Walker being able to constantly untap is kind of cool with Jeskai Ascendancy. I can imagine Hangerback Walker in this deck just kind of grows to an enormous size very quickly, both with its ability and the triggers from Jeskai Ascendancy. But you also have a few ways to sacrifice the Hangerback Walker with the collateral damage and the Pia and Kiran Nalaar, which I think is pretty sweet.
Yeah, I think it's pretty key, like finding a way to get rid of it. Basically, before, the only thing you had to get rid of your own Hangerback Walker would be grow it really big and then Valor stance it. But having a way to convert your, say, 3/3 or 4/4 Hangerback into actual tokens and then present like a lethal attack with something like Jeskai Ascendancy, or even like Gideon minus to give it an emblem. Gideon specifically looks really good in the deck. It does everything you want, making the tokens, and works well in multiples, since you could just play 1 and just -4 it, and then it just frees up a second copy in your hand. I guess we'll go to the one-ofs. Valor Stance, just a way to kill, things like, Anafenza, various big things. I like one-ofs in a deck that has Jace in it, because a deck that has Jace and a deck that can go through a large part of its library kind of fast with Treasure Cruise. So you see things like Valor Stance get flashbacked, or collateral damage, or the one Secure the Waste. This gives you more options having a variety of like one or like instants and sorceries.
Yeah, I mean, if the games play out like they're supposed to play out with the Jeskai Ascendancy deck, you're going to see probably 30 cards a game. And between the Jeskai Ascendancy, the Treasure Cruise, and the Jace, you're going to usually find the sweet one of that you need in very specific situations. And Jace being able to flash it back could just win you the game on the spot. So,
Jeskai Charm's a card that originally was a 2-of, but kind of got pushed out at the later parts of the Jeskai token development. But now I think we need it both as a way to gain life. There's only 2, I guess 3. There's 3 life gain cards in the deck since there's no Seeker of the Waves anymore. Plus, I think it's a really good option to kill or not kill, but answer Hangback Walker, at least temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
Put a large tempo boost in your favor. As for the mana base, it only has the 4 fetch lands to go with the Treasure Cruise and stuff and get the Prairie Streams, but we have 4 targets for that. We're going all the way up to 8 of the Pain lands, which I think is necessary because we don't have temples anymore, and because we have the 2-drop Hangback Walker now, so we have a better use for the colorless mana.
Yeah, I mean, one of my least favorite parts about the old versions of the Jeskai Ascendancy deck was that it had so many lands that came into play tapped. It usually had around 10, sometimes 12, and I felt like there were a lot of matchups where you would just fall too far behind. Now that no deck really wants, or now that no deck actually has temples in it, I think the format's going to speed up. It's either, games are either going to be about speed or who has the more consistent draw, and I think that there's going to be a lot more speed and a lot less consistency without the Scry lands.
Yeah, maybe the new Scry rule will help smooth out draws for people. But there are 8 non-red producing lands, which I think is the maximum you can have in a deck with Hordeling Outburst in it.
Yeah, I agree. 17 red sources seems like the right amount for Hordeling Outburst. So
yeah, and to shore up the mana base, we have one of each of the red making gain life lands, which could be wrong, could be something like Evolving Wilds, which would help with flipping Jace and Treasure Cruise, but I like the number of coming to play tap lands right now.
Yeah, I like it. Cool.
All right, that's the main deck. Let's move on to the sideboard. Okay, we're here for the sideboard. Now, I guess I'll start with the creature removals. Planar Outburst is largely an upgrade to End Hostilities. You don't see as many things that die to End Hostilities, like, say, an Assault Artifact on a Darksteel Citadel. That won't be exist anymore, and there's not really...
Blade.
Yeah, Ghostfire Blade, the Bestow mechanic is gone for the most part. Or just like enchantments. So, yeah, Planar Outburst is just an upgrade to End Hostilities, and it's good to have in the large, any deck to try to flood the board with big creatures. Since Anger of Gods is gone, our replacement is Radiant Flames. And while it's not as good because it doesn't exile anything, it's still pretty good. You could vary how much you want to do to it. Say if you have like a Jace that's a 0/2, but you have some 1 toughness opposing creatures, you can make it for just 1.
Yeah, that actually, we played a little bit of Radiant Flames in a video on Monday, and there was a game where I had a Soulfire Grandmaster in play, I think, and I was able to Radiant Flames for 1 to kill like 2 of his creatures and not kill mine. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it seems really cool, really versatile. In the middle, we have some counter spells against the slower matchups. Say Todd's going to bring in cards like Languish, which are very potent against my token-based strategy. So we'll see those come in. This definitely. You have some Ration Clerics. Mono Red's going to be around. There's not much in terms of life gain in the main deck. Then I have these 4 Mana Striders for decks that want to rely on blocking on the ground. Things like a Hangback Walker deck. And it's also good against decks that their best creature removal spell is Ultimate Price, which is probably the best 2-mana removal spell, but it's pretty narrow. So against decks that try to use that to kill, my Jace or something, I could just show up with this. And
it's just a generically good threat too. There are going to be some matchups where you're going to want to like play Mana Strider on 3 and then untap with like 2 counter spells, and a control deck is just going to get pummeled by it. So.
Yep. Well, that's a sideboard. Let's get to battling.